Hello there, English minors! I'm your teacher of English, Miss Jem, and welcome to another fun and exciting day today as we start to dig our English gems. The gems of English. Discovering new words, learning grammar rules, let's dig our precious gems together with our friends, Google and Webster. Reading, writing, speaking, listening. Come, let's discover the gems of English. The gem that we are going to discover is short story. But today, we are going to have a new teacher. Are you excited to meet her? Me too! Well, everyone, let's meet Miss Van. Hi, Miss Van.
Hi, Miss Jem.
Well, the kids here are so excited to meet you.
Oh, I am excited to meet them too. Thank you, Miss Jem. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Hello, everyone. Like what Miss Jem said, I am Miss Van. Are you excited to learn something new today? Oh yes, me too. For today, we are going to hear a story. Are you ready for our magic storyboard? Lend me your ears and your attention, and let's jump into our story for today.
I'm Stephen De La Vega, a so-called loner. I don't like socializing with anyone because I have always thought that people are judgmental. They will treat you based on what you can do for them. I raised my head and I saw a girl standing in front of me.
Classes are already dismissed. Why are you still here?
She asked, but I kept shut. I stood up and got out of the room. I was heading to the library when I noticed that she was following me. "What do you want?" I asked in an irritated tone. Everyone in the hallway looked at me.
Don't you know it's rude to shout out at a girl in public?
I just continued walking, still neglecting her.
Are you a new student? I have never seen you before even though your room is just next to ours.
I'm a transferee, I answered without looking at her. Since then, she has always followed me in every corner of the campus. We ate lunch together and spent our free time in the library. She became very close to me. One day, while we were walking in the campus, I saw her staring at a rose in the school garden. "Do you like roses?" We had been friends for almost a year already, but her identity still remains a mystery to me. The only thing I know about her is her name, Angelica Vinluan, a fourth-year student like me.
Yep, I like roses. They're my favorite.
I looked at her and saw sadness in her eyes. She stared at me and a small smile formed from her pretty red lip.
Do you know the story of the rose in the cactus garden?
She asked as she walked heading to the bench. I never heard about it, I uttered as I followed and sat beside her. She was looking at the sky when she began telling a story.
You know, once upon a time, there was a lonely rose. She was living in a desert. A cruel fate for a rose like her. She had no choice but to live with the cactus around her. She was the only one different. A lonely rose won't survive if she's in a desert in a cactus garden. Those cacti can live without water for a long time. They can stay in the burning heat of the sun, but how about the rose? She won't survive.
Is she referring to herself? I silently asked myself while staring at her. Then tears suddenly came running down her cheeks.
The rose, feeling extremely lonely, decided to cut herself to end her agony, but she was wrong. Her pain only became worse. She still can't get herself out of the desert.
Her voice was cracking as she gazed at me.
Then one day, a stranger, walking alone in the desert, blocked her and brought her with him on his journey.
Finally, the rose was free from the cruel desert fate that was bestowed on her.
I didn't understand what she meant that time, but I guess that she was the rose in the story. Months passed by, and shortly, we were about to graduate. But before that, our school held a night ball. I danced with Angelica. All my attention was focused only on her. It felt magical, and I was sure that it was one of the happiest moments of my life. After the ball, one of my classmates approached me.
Stephen, if you don't have a partner, you can tell me.
Puzzled and clueless, I glanced at Angelica.
She meant that you are a good dancer.
She remarked, winking at me. The night ended and we finally went home. Days passed by quickly. The graduation day came. I tried to look for Angelica, but it was too crowded. I didn't see her and I greatly regretted it. I then realized that I never cared to ask for her number or even her address at least. Thus, I decided to ask one of my classmates. "Hey, have you seen Angelica?" He looked at me with confusion. "She's the girl I'm always with during lunch break, and I danced with her all night during our night ball." I tried to explain more, but instead of answering my question, he bursted into laughter.
Dude, you're crazy. You're always alone every lunch break, and you didn't have any partner during the night ball? But hey, you're dancing in the wind, bro. That's why our classmates pity you.
He tapped my shoulder, then he left. Flashbacks suddenly flooded my mind. She can enter the library without any ID. She didn't want me to go near her classroom even though it's just next to. She never allowed me to give her a ride home. She never gave me any details about her except her organization. Oh right, her organization! I ran to the ground floor of the College of Business. I saw a room and tried to open it, but it was only a stock room. I turned the lights on and a beautiful mural surprised me, a cactus garden with a rose in the center. Then, a janitor seized my O and I didn't waste a second to ask her, "Do you know Angelica Villuan?" She stared at me, then pointed at the portrait.
Are you referring to her?
Yes!
She was the organization president of the art club 5 years ago.
I was perplexed. 5 years ago?
She was a smart and kind kid. She was always early and never failed to greet me every day. But she was always alone. I regularly see her in the garden. No one joined her club because many said that she was a freak. She was a victim of bullying. Until one day, I never saw her again. I just heard the news that she committed suicide.
Still surprised by what she said, I bid farewell and thanked her. I walked towards the garden, confirming that she's the rose in her story. "Angelica," I whispered in the wind as I saw her standing in the midst of the garden. "Thank you for letting me feel how it feels to have a friend who can accept me for who I am." Everything felt surreal. Then tears began falling from my eyes.
No, I should be the one to thank you for making me realize that being alone was never fun. You're the one who made me realize how special it is to have a friend beside me.
She smiled as I watched her vanish in the air. Maybe no one would believe me if I told them our story. But Angelica will surely be marked in my memory, and her story about a rose in a cactus garden will be remembered by everyone after I write a story.
Did you enjoy our story for today? Me too! Now, this time, let's discover the elements of a short story. You heard it right! The elements of a short story. These elements help us understand the story more. We have characters, setting, plot, point of view, and theme. A character is a person or sometimes even an animal who takes part in the action of a story or other literary work. In short story characters, we have the protagonist, antagonist, and supporting characters. In the story we have watched and listened to, who are the characters? Excellent! Our protagonists are Stephen de la Vega and Angelica Vinluan. We also have other supporting characters such as the girl student, the boy student, and the janitor. Are the characters round or flat? Stephen de la Vega has a dynamic character, while Angelica Vinluan has a flat character. The next element is setting. The setting of a short story is the time and place in which it happens. Authors often use descriptions of landscape, scenery, buildings, seasons, or weather to provide a strong sense of setting. It has 3 parts too: the date or day, the time, and the place. Can you tell me what is the setting of our story? The setting in our story is a school campus and the garden. How about the setting mood? Right! The setting mood is loneliness, solitude, happiness, acceptance, and relief. The third element that we are going to tackle is the mountain of plot. A plot is a series of events and character actions that relate to the central conflict. We have the exposition, where the characters, setting, and some of the conflicts are being introduced. The next is the rising action. Here, we can witness the continuous conflicts of the story that happen until we reach climax, where the protagonist and antagonist of the story meet. This is the peak of the story where we can witness the most extreme scenarios of the story. Next to it is the falling action, where the events lead to the end of the story. And lastly, the resolution. In this part, we can know what will finally happen to our characters. It implies the outcome of the story. This is where we will know what can happen to them in the future. This is where we usually witness, and they lived happily ever after. This time, let's identify the plot of our story. Our story is entitled A Rose in a Cactus Garden. The story started when Stephen, the main character, introduced himself and revealed his attitude towards other people, followed by the sudden introduction of another character, Angelica. The setting is also vaguely revealed by an indirect description of a school campus setup. The action rises when the relationship between the two progressed as time went by. And the title was also explained because of the story about the rose and the cactus garden, followed by the occasional story of the events in a school setup. We reached our climax when it was revealed to Stephen that the girl doesn't actually exist, and he remembered flashbacks of certain events in which it went by unnoticed. The action falls as Stephen found the truth through the janitor who revealed the sad past of Angelica. The story concluded as Stephen found the spirit of Angelica in the school garden. She thanked him for helping her and eventually vanished in thin air. That was a blast. Now that we're done with the plot, we will talk about the point of view. In the point of view, it can be in the first person, second person, or third person. In the first person point of view, the main character is the one telling the story. In the second person point of view, any of the characters is the one narrating the story. And lastly, in the third person point of view, someone not in the story, perhaps the author, is the one telling the story. Our story showed a first person point of view.
This time, let's identify the theme, symbol, tone, and style of the story of the rose in the cactus garden. The theme can be identified as the underlying meaning of a story. It is the message the writer is trying to convey through the story. Often, the theme of a story is a broad message about life. It is important because a story's theme is part of the reason why the author wrote the story. In our story, the theme is love, hope, and friendship. The next one is the symbol. A symbol is anything that stands for or represents something else. In a story, a character, an action, an object, or an animal can be symbolic. Often, these symbols stand for something abstract, like a force of nature, a condition of the world, or an idea. The symbolisms that we can find in the story are the rose and the cacti. The rose signifies Angelica Vinluan, while the cacti signify the bullies. Let's now talk about the tone. In literary terms, tone typically refers to the mood implied by an author's word choice and the way that the text can make a reader feel. The tone an author uses in a piece of writing can evoke any number of emotions and perspectives. In the story, we can feel sad, doubtful, curious, carefree, happy, and relieved. Lastly, we have the style. Style in literature is the literary element that describes the ways that the author uses words. The author's word choice, sentence structure, figurative language, and the sentence arrangement all work together to establish mood, images, and meaning in the text. The style that we can find in the story is the use of figurative language of the characters, direct introduction and flow, and plot twist in the end. And that's it for our lesson for today. I hope you learned something about short stories. See you again next time. Toodles!